Morning.
Good morning, people.
Cool glasses, teacher.
Thank you.
That picture is amazing.
Yeah, I know it's my hero. Lego Batman is the best. We got more people coming in. Let's see. Got review, drill. Yeah, we're supposed to be wearing like walkie stuff today. So just turn on your camera so I can take a picture. You know the drill. David and power so I can see anything with this. Three, two, one, picture time. There you go. It doesn't have to be everybody. Just the important ones. And those are here. Right, guys, how you doing? Everything's fine?
Kinda.
Kinda? Oh my God. Why? What happened? Are you okay?
No.
You having problems with the grammar translation method? It's too
No.
complicated?
I don't think so.
No, okay. All right, guys. So let's do what we do. Let's work on the grammar translation method. And we're going to finish with that today so we can move on to the direct method. Yeah, that's all. You know the drill. I'm going to send you the link in chat, through the chat, by means of the chat. And as soon as I get the code, yes, here it is. All right, so need to be able to read. H catches on. All right, so we got 1, 2. Hello. So grammar is not so bad. Why do you think it's still used in many parts of the world? Because even though nowadays it's considered the best approach, it is effective. It is sometimes easier to teach English that way to beginners, usually children. Okay, educational system train from the teachers that is easy to use, and they do not want to use something more complicated. Okay, that's a good one. Many teachers are not aware that there are many other methods, don't have enough sources or skills to use a different method. Because some people might think the students need it in order to understand, especially with beginners, because it can be used as one of the many techniques that are for language learning. It may help with the lesson depending on our objectives. Okay, it's a good reflection, because it is necessary for some specific students, children or teenagers who tend to have issues with grammar and reading exercises. Sometimes it's easier to comprehend some grammar while talking on the native language, or the skill set of the teachers. Student is not good enough to only use the targeting. Oh, it's a good point, man. Maybe their level is not good enough, because it works in certain situations. It is the only method they have access to. The education system considers enough. It's easier for teachers to control the classroom. I like that. Maybe because of the lack of money to improve the method, right? Because people is not aware that it's not the actual translation of what people want to say. Some places still a traditional way of teaching the language easier for the student in the early stages. Okay, it's good. My opinion, I think that in some way we feel familiarized. We come to know and understand different words because it's one of the most common and easiest things to do, or because it's easier to teach. Because it is easier to compare things from a different cultural language if we directly translate it. Explaining things can get difficult if you don't compare to something that you already know. I really, really like all your contributions, guys. They're very, very good. But let's see who gets the most likes. Okay, go ahead, read what everybody else posted and give it a like. And let's see who gets the most likes. Of course, you're going to vote for yours, but you can also help somebody else. Okay, I got 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, very good. This is getting 3 now. 2 against 2. This is getting 4. Bad. Okay, we have a tie. 4 against 4. Very, very close. 5. Okay. Okay, okay. Wow, we got six likes here. I guess these two are taking the lead, even though we have a couple of others here who are very good as well. All right, now this is you guys, okay? You voted for this. Wow, look at this. Excellent. All right, so officially a tie. So let's talk about that. Those two that are more popular. I mean, everybody did a very good job, but for some reason these two became the most popular answers. So Anaí, can you explain yours? You got 8 likes, so it's very good.
Yes. Can I explain it? Yes. I think it is very popular because when you are learning a new language, it is very likely that you're learning about the culture too. So I think you cannot start to understand something if you don't have like a previous knowledge of it. So the easiest thing to do is to compare with the things you already know.
Excellent. Okay, very good. So that will be a reason why we still go with translation, right? Okay, Arlette, you got 8 points as well, 8 likes. So congratulations. Can you explain yours?
I agree with Anaí, but I think she was seeing it more as a student and I saw it more as a teacher because I was talking based on experience. I taught children, they were 8 years old, and it was easier for me to get them to understand what I was trying to explain by translating or explaining it in Spanish or using keywords in, as Anaí said, in a language that I knew they would understand or relate to. So I think it works in some cases.
Yeah, excellent, right? Because you want the students to work and practice, but if they don't understand what they have to do, then they're not going to do it. So you can save a lot of time by just explaining it, but just explain it in Spanish, and then do the practice in English. A lot of teachers do that. Again, I'm not satanizing this. I'm not saying it's bad. All I'm saying is it's one tool, it's one strategy. I think Yvette mentioned that. It can be used as one of the many techniques there are for language learning. It may help with the lesson depending on our objectives. But I want to Carlos, can you explain your answer? Because I really like it, so I give you a like. There you go. Okay, so Carlos, I'm listening to you. Somebody wake up, Carlos.
I woke up, but my brother was talking to me.
Okay.
Well, I was telling this because sometimes the teacher cannot explain himself well while trying to explain some instructions or something like that. Or the pronunciation from each can vary from the student and the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the student cannot understand or their skills are not good enough like to have an entire class in English. That was what I was trying to say.
Yeah, no, I agree. Right. I mean, we're gonna see that. I mean, I think you read it in your material that that's one of the reasons why people still use grammar translation. Because like we saw in the video, we're only capitalizing on reading and writing. Right? There's no listening, there's no speaking. They don't need to communicate to one another because in the beginning it was dead languages, so you were not supposed to talk dead languages, just read the classics. And like I said, that way of teaching was transferred into modern languages. So they were teaching English, French, whatever, using the same techniques that they did with Latin and Greek. So speaking, listening, they were not considered important. It was more about developing this mental discipline. It was more about having a well-rounded education rather than communication. Okay? So guys, congratulations, you did a very good job. Let's move on to the next activity. Right, so this is you say what you have in your material. Grammar translation is good, or a possible reason for grammar translations to be around is says the limited command of spoken English of language teachers. Okay, I'm sure you had experience in high school or middle school. You have an English teacher, or you knew about an English teacher whose English was terrible, and you said, "I speak better English than this guy does." Okay, maybe you say that about me too. Shame on you, right? But yeah, you have the teacher in front of you, and his English, her English is terrible, but they know how to explain things in Spanish, and they may be very good at giving you practice, right? But they decide to teach in Spanish because of their limited skills. That's why I was going with Carlos Josue answer. Supposed reasons of the popularity of grammar translation, the fact that this was a method their teachers use. Okay, remember, we tend to favor the way we learn. So if a lot of people are learning English like this and they become teachers themselves, then what are they going to do? They're going to imitate what their teachers did and say, if it was good enough for me, it's good enough for my students. Right? It gives teachers a sense of control and authority in the classroom. Right, because you're the center of the classroom. This is this teacher-centered method. And finally, it works well in large classes. Right, everybody's silent, everybody's reading, translating, writing. There's no noise. Nobody's talking to each other. There's no exchange. There's no interaction. So it's a lot of schools. Because I worked in some private schools in my time. They wouldn't like my classes because I will get the students to, work in teams, work in groups, move around, and play. And the tutores and everything were like, yeah, that's very nice. When are you going to start teaching? Like, I've been teaching. No, you've been playing. You play a song and children like it. You brought some activities, some games. But, get to work. Start teaching. Because they're more traditional. It's like the class is supposed to be silent. The class is supposed to be quiet. The students are supposed to have their head down, just looking at the materials. That's very traditional, but it worked for many, many centuries, many, many years. So, it's hard to break away from that. But okay, I digress. Do you agree with this?
Yes.
A simple yes or no will do. Very good. Okay. All right, so let's move on. Let's see what can we do. Okay, now this is a open question. Do I give you time? Yeah, you have 2 minutes to answer this. I think I gave it too much time.
Like they have to try and read the text with a translate, because that's the way they can like understand and comprehend the meaning of the text, the purpose.
All right, that's good. I agree. So, Angelica, can you think of a kind of class or a, some sort of area where people learn English, but they don't necessarily have to speak it; they just have to read it?
Well, normally it's on the, well, as far as I can remember from my previous experiences and little things that I have seen, it's mostly when they are practicing the reading skill and the reading and writing skill. They just read this text and write the answers below, write the questions below. So people normally they don't get like a real use of that. So
They don't speak, they don't listen, they just read. And sometimes it's read this in the foreign language, and then make a summary in your own language, right?
Yeah.
So not even translate the whole thing, just what you understand in your own language. So you're just working with reading. There's not even writing there. Does anybody know about this? I don't know, Ari or Anai. Can you think of any science where students, they only have to read in the foreign language? They don't need to speak it. They don't need to listen to it. They don't need to write it.
In actual context, actually not.
Okay. All right. I mean, just in case you're thinking like this is like who will just want to read when they can talk, right? I mean, I'm telling you, because there are some sciences. Let's go with that. Some sciences that they do that. Like medicine. I don't know if you have any friends that study medicine.
I was going to mention that my brother studied biomedicine, and he sometimes just need to read and literally translate what he was reading.
Yes.
Like medical articles and things like that.
Right.
He would not produce it, just read it. And
exactly, right.
Right.
So they need to read this in the foreign language, because that's where the latest information is printed on. But they don't need to speak it. They don't need to listen to it. They don't even have to write it. Just on whatever you understand, just write it down in Spanish, right? So medicine, that's one. Engineering, sometimes too, computers, right? There's a lot of careers in which students take English classes, but mostly it's just reading comprehension, right? That's what they call it, reading comprehension. So you have to tell them how to read and strategies for understanding what they're reading. You don't have to worry about speaking. You have to worry about listening. You have to even worry about writing. We used to have, Centro Idiomas used to have a lot of requests for reading comprehension courses for master degree levels and PhD degree levels, because, it's a requirement. They need it. Sometimes they just needed to have the document, just the paper. It's like not even to use it is really sad, but that's just reality. So grammar translation, that's where it comes in. It's the same principles. It's just these are the rules. This is the grammar. This is how it works. This is how it connects. Right? Try to compare it to Spanish, and then based on all the knowledge that you have on the content, medicine, engineering, whatever, you can infer, you can interpret the readings, and then just explain it in Spanish. Okay.
But teacher, what happens when the grammar is, there are some points that are not the same in one language, like in one language, it can be grammar that is not the same in the other one. For example, the accommodation, the collocation of the words. But
Yeah,
blue car, el carro azul. What
yeah,
happens there?
that's what you do. You have a teacher that is guiding you through the translation, to the interpretation, the explanation. Just like Arlette was saying with children, you know, like, oh, well, you have to do this. Teacher, ¿qué dice aquí? Dice esto. Not literally translate, but to interpret. And say, in Spanish, we say it like this. In English, they say it like this. But the idea is the same, so they can understand it. Okay. And again, you don't have to speak it. You don't have to listen to it. You don't have to write it. It's just reading and trying to interpret. You know, when it says grammar translation, don't take it so literal. It's not like you have to translate exactly as it is, because we have to make, you know, changes to adapt it to how we will say this in our language. So this is more interpretation than translation. But you know what I'm saying. Okay, some things you cannot interpret, you have to translate. Like when I translate birth certificates, I translate transcripts from English to Spanish, Spanish to English. So most of the time, I just have to translate exactly as it is. I cannot interpret it. So like, this is what it says, and that's what I put there, right? Very little margin for interpretation, because I cannot change things too much. But when you're teaching and they're learning, what does it say here? It says this. What does that mean? Well, in Spanish, we say it like that. Oh, okay, that makes more sense. Okay. So again, it's still on. I mean, that's my point. The point is, grammar translation is not dead. Grammar translation is still alive in the 21st century. And because maybe of the reason that we discussed before, right? Maybe we don't know better. Maybe our institutions are rooted in that traditional way of teaching, learning, dynamic. Maybe our teachers don't have the level to teach any other way. Or maybe the objective at the end is not communication, only reading and understanding. All right. Now, the next activity is on you, right? So we'll talk about you. 3, 2, 1. My recording. All right. Have you experienced grammar translation instruction yourself? Were there any aspects of it that you enjoy or you thought were useful in your own learning? When you were learning, maybe some of you mentioned Japanese, French.
In English or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, whatever. If you went through this with English, share that idea. If you went that with another language that you're learning, share with us as well. Like I said, you mentioned some of you guys are learning Japanese, some of you guys are learning French, Klingon, I don't know, whatever you're learning. At any point, was there anything useful or even enjoyable? Okay, it seems like somebody has already answered, but I don't see it. Okay. So, nope. Okay. All right. Got 2 people. Okay. Help me with the rules. The grammar, okay. Excellent. Right. Sometimes the topic is too complicated. We can use that. Wow. Color me surprised. Nice. was able to understand the vocabulary, grammar rules. Mhm. Right, so it can be useful. Mhm. Definitely. Okay, Sensei always says that it's okay. Do it perfectly. We need to transmit the message correctly. LOL. Yes. It's totally different, Japanese from Spanish. And when you do activities of translation, better said, okay, when they interpret text, also with lyrics. Not that I remember. Mhm. Yeah, typical tenses, definitely. Okay, guys, you did very, very well. And yeah, like, I mean, the whole point here is, of course, for you to know that there was a grammar translation method that was they once came up, and we're still using it today. The objectives of it, how does it work, what kind of activities we do with it, but that is, in some cases, useful. Okay, and you have experienced that. Sometimes we forget that because we already know English, and our new way of working is more communication and interaction and constructivism and try to find your own answers and blah blah blah, which is very good. Okay, but every now and then your students may feel more motivated to keep going if you help them, right? I mean, you have to consider, is it worth it for me to spend 10 minutes explaining this when I can just get it out of the way in 30 seconds by just saying the word in Spanish? You know, like cost benefit, you know. Or is it more beneficial for my students to go through the whole process of trying to understand on their own? You know, what level are my students seeing? Can they do that? Am I ready to go through the whole process, or am I going to lose it halfway through and just yell in Spanish, whatever it is they're doing? Okay, but you know, it is still there, and we can benefit from that. Okay, that's the point that I want you to get. Don't satanize any of the methods we're going to see, because in the end, you will see that the name of the game is flexibility. Okay, we have to be flexible in the way we teach, because we have so many students and everybody learns in a different way. So we can learn from each and every method and say, well, in this case, I'm going to apply some of these techniques from the grammar translation, but maybe in this other class, my students are different, and well, they're learning different. So I can do something else, more direct method, maybe more suggestopedic, maybe more, you know, thorough physical response, maybe more communicative, maybe more community, maybe, you know, flexibility. That's the point. All right, guys, we have less than a minute, so let me just stop this and come back, and we can finish this. Okay, come back as soon as you can.